Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, December 17th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski. All please rise for silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. President, if I can ask that we remember all those in our community that are less fortunate than we are in any and every way, not just local, but our global community and global family. I want to do something a little different, I guess, is just ask us to put our thoughts and prayers towards our community, which is in a bit of a state of crisis with a lot of the violence and things that are going on every night in our community. I believe Erie is an all-American city. We just have to get back to believing that ourselves as citizens. So just keep our thoughts and prayers towards that. And finally, we ask our God and Creator to give us the wisdom and the proper information to make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from the meeting of Wednesday, December 3rd, 2014, and bills for payment on December 19th, 2014, and January 2nd, 2015. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon.
Thank you. Are there any requests for repository sales? Are there any requests for repository sales? Are there any requests for repository sales? Hearing none. Citizens to be heard, and each citizen is entitled to 5 minutes to speak on any issue, whether it's agenda item or something you want us to know. The first would be, is it Hunter Lytle? Please come to the mic, give us your name and address.
My name is Hunter Lytle, 4058 Zimmerman Road, Erie, PA. Good evening, council members. It will just be me speaking on behalf of the You Ought to Stay Here campaign tonight. Thank you for allowing us to speak with you. This is the You Ought to Stay Here campaign. The mission of our campaign is to keep the Erie Otters hockey franchise a local asset and opportunity. Active citizenry demands a public to acknowledge a need and evoke change. Thus far, the people of Erie have failed to stand for their team and call to action the need to save the Erie Otters. While the parallel can be drawn to that of an endangered sea mammal, we encourage you to protect our team and Erie's wildlife. Though we may appear as a motley crew of individuals, we are demanding that our voice be heard on an unparalleled level. The Save Our Team campaign is in its infancy. Though the campaign just started, we have made unprecedented strides in doing the groundwork of saving our team. Our social media campaign in 1 week has accrued over 3,400 paid likes on Facebook, 375 followers on Twitter, and the entire Erie community rooting us on. We have targeted both the modern adult community and the younger, potentially active generation of Otters fans. Some will underestimate our efficacy and ability to lead this campaign. However, we have already proven that to be false. In 1 week, we have procured interviews with potential buyers and partners of the Erie Otters, the owner's attorney, and the owner of the Erie Otters, Mr. Sherry Basson. Throughout the gleaning process for information, we have established facts and the true current status of the Erie Otters campaign to be sold as a franchise. Many rumors have been proliferated through the unwarranted propaganda of local media and rumor mills. There are a few factual pieces of evidence that we would like you to know. While some of his business practices may be questioned, there are a few undeniable facts. Mr. Basson has owned the team for 18 years, which is the second longest ownership record. 25 years is the first. He is dedicated to keeping the team in Erie, but there is no reason to. He is from Ontario. He's doing it for Erie. He genuinely cares about the team, and they care about him. Connor McDavid said, quote, "He's a great person and a great owner. Everything this season has been pretty special." Even our Mayor Senate has acknowledged the imperative nature of this campaign as he notes that, quote, "When a team has a season like this, it has an economic impact on the community." There is potential to move the team to Canada. However, at this current juncture, no arena stands as a viable location. Hamilton was rumored to have wanted the Otters to move there, but they have signed a new lease, and the AHL team will remain in the current arena through the 2015 season at the Copps Coliseum. This is important as it offers us a window of opportunity to keep the Otters here. This, however, does not rule out a potential Canadian buyer and move of the team after 3 years and a new construction of an arena in Canada. None of this information is hearsay. It is actual evidence that can both be verified in the Canadian media and from Mr. Basson himself. Considering all of this information does not guarantee a stay in Erie for the Otters, as they are relatively a tough sell for the average wealthy venture capitalist. The Erie Otters hockey is known to be a tough sell. The potential investor or group owner must be an expensive knowledge about hockey or have enough available money to hire someone that does. Because the team is part of a true junior hockey league and not a feeder team, the owner must know the game in order to hire coaches and recruiters, draft players, and the like. The debt rolled in, the sale price of the team is $7 million. Recent purchases of the OHL teams validate this potential price. It seems like a lot, but in Canada, this team would easily sell for $9 million. No matter the public opinion of Mr. Basson, it simply does not matter. While there have been a few years of documented profit and loss, the recent success of this team is to be credited to Mr. Basson and his ability to recruit 3 NHL-bound teenagers. The team has recently prospered, and all other issues with Mr. Basson must be considered proverbial water under the bridge. Because of these NHL hopefuls and good OHL recruiting, the Otters have an extreme increase in notoriety and reputation. In an Erie Times News article on September 24th, Victor Fernandez correctly portrayed the potential of the Otters during an interview with Mr. John Fry, the Otters operation manager. Fry noted that, quote, "The Otters have enjoyed strong economic growth, including what he estimated as a 700% increase in group sales over the past 3 years and a 30 to 40% increase in sponsorships from 2 seasons ago. He also said season ticket and multi-game ticket sales have increased by more than 100 from last season to more than 1,300 this season. The current attendance at the Erie Otters hockey games vary between 3rd and 4th in the Ontario Hockey League."
That's a 5-minute signal.
Okay, we'd like to thank you for your time, and also, if you would please Otter endorse us, we'd very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very excellent presentation. Are there any other citizens to be heard? No. Come right on up. And just give us your name and address.
My name is Frank Petruso. I live in 535 Mohawk, Erie, PA. I've never come to a council meeting and complained about anything before. In the 45 years I've been a taxpayer in this city. Right now, the taxpayers, the city of Erie, both in my homes and all my rental properties that I previously owned, I paid my taxes on time, never missed a payment, whether it was taxes, water bill, cities, whatever. I've never missed a payment. The city of Erie, right now, with this new 7% tax increase, is out of line. I'm speaking for not just myself, but a lot of other citizens in this city. We cannot afford for you to keep doing this. It is beyond the realm. I'm a senior citizen now. I have Social Security plus my savings. My savings I've been using for the last 6 years. It's not going to last much longer, especially if you keep raising taxes on the backs of the people that have supported this city for over 45 years. It is amazing that the budget was handed to you about 3 to 4 weeks ago by the mayor, and you rubber stamped it without giving thought to the city's citizens of the city of Erie. There should be more thought and consideration. And number one, why your budget has to be passed by January 1st when everybody's going on Christmas vacation, that's all they're thinking about, is ridiculous. You should start this budget process in June and go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, which surely you failed to do. Number one, John Evans had a great article in the paper about 4 or 5 weeks ago explaining all the problems with this city. Nobody seems to want to listen to it, but all 5 of those, that I'm sure you've all read it because I read it. I don't read that much, but I do read the news. He pointed out many of the problems that are occurring here. Number one, your nonprofits are taking over the whole tax base. I personally know it for a fact. When Gannon brought all my income properties, I was paying $20,000 a year in taxes on them. Within 6 months, they took away all the tenants that were non-college students and put the whole thing on non-paying taxes. And these people were long-term tenants in my properties also. And they keep buying up property from people that are paying their taxes and getting away with it. It's ridiculous. They should be made to pay the taxes that I at least paid since I owned those properties for 30 years. But no, they immediately go on a tax-exempt basis. It's bullshit. The nonprofits in this city are a joke. Every one of them, every one of their executives, I don't see one person in there that's making less than $270,000 a year. I worked all my life in multiple jobs, owned my own business since I was 26, and never made that kind of money. But I was always able to pay my bills and live comfortably. Most of those executives, some of them are making $1 million a year, and they're a nonprofit. I think if they put some of that money back in to what the tax base should be, there wouldn't be such of a problem to the citizens of Erie. Right now, a lot of your poverty is moving west, off of the east side. And I've seen it. I drive down the west side. I wouldn't go down this city at night without I have a gun permit, but I would never travel in this city at night without my gun on me. That's a sad state of affairs. This city has come to that. You have many other ways to get taxes. The Port Authority is another one. They are way beyond their scope. The Sheraton Hotel and the new hotel they're building without being tax exempt. That's a joke. They're one of the highest percentage places in the country for Sheratons, yet they're not paying taxes. Yet you people keep rubber stamping it. It's bull. We have to have something equal and taken off the backs of the citizens. I could go on and on and on about this, but I was working until about 6 o'clock, and I says, I got to say something. I mean, it's just gotten way out of hand. And you're going to stamp a 7% increase on the taxpayers of the city of Erie? You got to be kidding me. Do your job. Look for other resources and start with those nonprofits. And all the nonprofit agencies that are in this city that are getting executives, that are the Barber Center, the Erie Community Foundation. Every one of those guys are making $200,000 to $300,000, $400,000 a year. That's a joke. And they keep calling us up and wanting more money because they don't have the monies. Well, cut their salaries back a little bit or make them pay the taxes that these buildings are worth. Both the Gannon College.
That signal is your 5 minutes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I have to echo what the gentleman is talking about, and it's a serious thing. Non-profits making that kind of money. My gosh. $250,000 a year, non-profit. You start taxing some of them, and they won't be getting them big salaries. They make more money, some of them make more money than the president. And they don't touch him nowhere. He know what he's doing. He had his planned out before he went in. But he's caught hell since he's been in there. That's a shame. The Bible speaks of we're supposed to lift our leaders up. They haven't lifted him very high. I've been telling you about those cameras. But then crossed his mind, and I want to thank him. We shouldn't have to be going through all of this. I've asked you before, how are you training your policemen? They're not getting very much training the way they treat some people. I thank God that they don't treat me like that, because I'd have been dead long ago, because I wouldn't take that kind of, My mother, she was a woman, she weighed about 250, and when she put it on you, it was on you. You talking about child abuse now. That's what we got, child abuse. But I haven't been to jail for no crime. I've been bull skated, harassed and that, but I haven't went to jail for no crime. Because she had a heavy hand. She was heavy-handed. I have a lot of issues, though, really. And y'all should listen to us. We're paying the freight. Y'all act like you're reaching up in the air pulling money out. Those are our tax dollars. I don't mind paying taxes. Somebody got to pay them. But how about a fair tax? Where I live at, ghetto. Tax shouldn't be $100 a year up there. Don't get no police protection up there. They ride down through there. That's about it. You got to do a better job. You need to ask the people what they want. You don't know what we want. You don't know what you want. So how you gonna know what we want? Ask us what we want. You're spending our money. You're not asking us to spend it, but you're spending it. Anything Joe want up there, y'all, that's the boss. Joe ain't your boss. The taxpayers are your boss. But you don't act like it. You act like Joe's God up there. Joe ain't God. Thank heaven. Ain't none of you. Some of y'all think you're gods. You're not. God's sitting high looking low. And you're going to answer for what you're doing. You know right from wrong. I know you do. All of you up there got a little education. You got way more than I got. I've been working ever since I was about 14 or 15, way before then. So I didn't get to go to school too much. We come up on welfare. Now, that was $25 a month, I think, back then. And that was 9 of us. How can you raise 9 people on $25 a month? But now, these foreigners coming in, you're giving them an armful of money. Some of the guys on the garbage truck told me, said that the garbage was so heavy they couldn't hardly lift it, so they opened it up and looked in there, steaks, pork chops. God help you. God help us. I thank him for letting me live as long as I did. I just thank him. I thank him every morning and every night, and you ought to learn to thank him. Maybe you'll do a better job, because y'all ain't doing too good. Y'all better get on them cameras for them cars. I tell you that, the president's going to beat you to it. I know you think I'm blowing hot air. Believe me, this old man ain't as crazy as he look. Y'all better get on the stick, I'm telling you. Start doing your job. Start doing your job. We need beat policemen out there. The cops are too good to walk the street. They got to ride everywhere. When I was coming up, we had beat policemen out there. How do you think they're going to meet the people? How do you think they can't talk to the kids from the car? You know what I mean? They cannot talk to kids from the car. They got to get out and face the kids and talk to them. And the kids will start listening to them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. I'm going to finish up actually for the Erie Auditors. My name is Sarah Kim, 5039 Amherst Road in Erie. So you may wonder why we're telling you all of this information, all of this idea and ideas that we've gathered from everyone in the community. We are trying to legitimize a campaign, a cause, and a community. And we believe in you having the power to evoke that change. Here's what we need. First, We need your support to help earmark funding for the completion of the Erie Insurance Arena. While the arena is already a beautiful asset to the community, potential buyers will insist on its completion to be a full functioning and profitable venue. Your relationship with the Erie County Convention Center Authority will enhance our endeavors to do such. Secondly, your name carries a positive presence in the community that we need to help find a potential owner. As the Erie City Council members, you have the appropriate influence to market our team as a community endeavor and token of pride. While we are committed to our purpose, your influence is necessary to successfully see the campaign to full fruition. Mr. Witherspoon, as a Gannon University graduate and former member of the Greater Erie Community Action Committee, you understand the importance of community and how without it, a city cannot flourish. In an article written on July 1st, 2012, you said, quote, "Once at a banquet, a young man who is now a minister got up, pointed at me, and said, 'If it wasn't for that man right there, I wouldn't be here today. I saw the light in him.'" Let us say the same thing to you today in hopes that you will see the light in this campaign and help keep the otters in Erie. Mr. Brennan, you have showed interest in the urban renewal program, as well as various architectural projects throughout the city of Erie. Now is your chance to show interest in saving the entertainment infrastructure of the Erie Otters. Mrs. Horan-Kunso, in August 2011, a news article said that you would, quote, "go to work with the citizens and City Hall and try and fix what's wrong with our city." Let this be a problem that you try to help us fix. Mr. Curtis Jones, Jr., at your current position at Stairways as a community outreach specialist, you understand that all members of a society have an important part in accomplishing a task. Your favorite Bible quote is, quote, "Without a vision, the people perish." We have the vision and the community support. Now help us make our vision a reality. Please allow this project to be another one of your community projects and support the You Otter Stay Here campaign. Mr. Kwiatkowski, in March 2013 news article, you said, quote, "I feel my experience can help the city." Help us. Let this be your opportunity to help our city in a very large way. Mr. Mirsky, as a Cathedral Prep graduate, you understand the importance of family and the effect they have on a community. Also, as a member of the Economics Pennsylvania Regional Advisory Board, you see the value of the otters in the local economy. Please endorse this campaign. Mr. Winarski, in a March 2013 news article, you said that you were taking, quote, "a common sense approach to government." Please help us also make that common sense route in the campaign to help save the otters. City Council, please consider our plea for your endorsement of this project, our community, and our team. Understand that we represent the city and community that's relying on you to help keep our team in Erie and our economic potential viable. In closing, please, and you should, endorse us. You Otter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Richard Wagner, 42nd and State, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone here and everybody up there.
Same to you,
And
sir.
I hope we do get a little quiet into our city, Curtis. I really do. Council was given the task of coming up with cuts in the mayor's budget. The fact of the matter is, it's not a budget, it's a spending plan with fixed costs. The only way to chip away at it is by cutting personnel. So as I said, it really is kind of a dog and pony show. There is really nothing council can do to spare the taxpayers from this tax hike. I did note that Mr. Fred Rush is retiring. It always seems in this building there is a rush to refill the seats of retirees. Perhaps with the financial problems facing the city, whatever tasks were assigned to Mr. Rush could be spread around the 5th floor and leave Mr. Rush's position fall vacant. That would be equivalent to a 5% reduction in the tax increase. If the 5th floor insists on filling this position, I hope council insists that a City of Erie resident is chosen for the job. Far too often in this building, the at-will positions are filled by people that live south of Interstate 90. As a community, we are fortunate to have Erie Insurance Exchange as our anchor business in the city proper. They have been a good partner with the city and even a better partner with Erie Events. The parking ramp and the naming rights were all worked out with Erie Insurance and really benefited the Erie Events organization. These accomplishments were all good, but I can't help but think of two negatives, and they aren't negative against Erie Insurance. They really are negative against the economic development team that sits in this building. How could we let 300 jobs from Erie Insurance Exchange move to 26 in Asbury? And how could we place Erie Insurance Exchange, a for-profit business, in a position to challenge their tax assessment and ask for a reduction? The economic development team in this building should have worked with Erie Insurance, become a facilitator, an enabler for Erie Insurance, and worked out an arrangement favorable for both parties. I have a problem when I read in the paper concerning hotel development in the private sector. I have to take pause when Mr. Kennedy builds a hotel at $100,000 a unit. And now in Summit Township, Ramesh Development is building hotel units at about $80,000 a unit. But in Erie, on our jewel, the Bayfront, we have turned hotel development over to Erie Events. How in the world can they justify building units at $250,000 a unit? It just doesn't make sense to me. The only conclusion I can come to is they're skimming administrative cost that they take. Overpaying, and I think if a closer look was taken, the state would have to sit back and question why in the world they gave $25 million in state tax dollars to build something that if it was in the hands of the private sector could be done for a fraction of the cost. I'm not a fan of authorities. They cannot exist without the ability of the city and county to tax the citizenry. Saying that, I would like to discuss the food desert that has been created by the closure of several grocery stores in the city boundaries. Here's my suggestion. We'll use the same formula that the Erie County Convention Center Authority used when entering into the private world of the hotel business. But in this case, we'll adopt a struggling Erie Redevelopment Authority and give them the ability to search for grocery store co-op, and the Redevelopment Authority, using the Convention Center's formula, will get grants from the state, freedom from property tax, and and to add a little to the coffers, we'll enlist a tax on all operating grocery stores in Erie County and give the modest proceeds to the Redevelopment Authority to operate perhaps 4, 5, or even 6 new markets in the inner city and become the nucleus to revitalize some of the problem areas in our city. The details would have to be worked out, but based on the success of the Convention Center Authority, the Redevelopment Authority could turn the corner and bring affordable, healthy food options to many people in our city who so badly need and deserve them. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Good night.
Are there any other citizens to be heard?
Good evening, Council. My name is Dan Zimieski. As you may recall, I spoke before the last
Your
meeting.
address?
Oh, I'm sorry. 213 West 17th Street.
Thank you, sir.
A couple of things before I get into my ongoing issue. First, I'd like to commend City Council for not dipping into the reserves. Of course, no one's happy about a tax increase, but putting off paying the piper till next year I don't think is very fiscally sound or responsible, so I do appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to mention, during the last regular meeting, Mr. Jones had commented when talking about the violence in the city, he said that our youth aren't shooting each other over jobs, and while this is very literally true, we must not forget the impact that jobs do have. Case in point, the city of Chicago had a summer work program. It was something, over 1,000 youth were able to work part-time 8 weeks during the summer. As a follow-up, a university did a study and followed these youth for the next 13 months. And the data was very interesting. It showed that the youth who took part in this summer work program, there were almost 50% fewer arrests over the course of 13 months, which is phenomenal. I mean, that's huge. It's a huge reduction in crime. So yes, while they may not literally be killing each other, shooting each other over jobs, we must remember that jobs, things that build self-esteem and respect, are extremely important. Now on to my ongoing issue. If you may recall, I was having problems getting a right-to-know request fulfilled from the city concerning a permit that was issued to the convention center. The convention center had used it in order to try to prevent protesters from being near the Civic Center during an event. I did end up getting another response from Ms. Cook, the right-to-know officer. Unfortunately, it raised more questions than it answered. She apologizes as she claims she saw only sidewalk permit, I guess opposed to sidewalk vendor permit in my request, which is curious because her initial response dated November 5th, the second sentence reads, second paragraph, first sentence reads, on October 28th, 2014, you requested information related to sidewalk vendor permits. So she did actually say in her original response to me that she knew I was looking for sidewalk vendor permits. But on December 5th, she claims that she doesn't know that that's what I was looking for. Doesn't quite make sense to me. The other thing, and much more important, that I find is quite troubling is the copy of the permit that was provided to me on December 5th differs from the permit that the convention center displayed to me back in October in two notable ways. One of them in the remarks section. For some reason now, the remarks section is blank, when it previously had said Erie County Convention Center Authority has the exclusive rights to the areas listed above. The other discrepancy is both Casey Wells and Dave Rocco's signature are different. So it leads me to believe that this document was created after the fact in response to something's going on here. I also received something from the Deputy Solicitor Ferguson with an attached affidavit claiming that they have given me everything that there is concerning this right-to-know request, which I know is not true because I have pictures of the emails, which I specifically requested. I specifically, in my right-to-know request, asked for any and all emails, correspondence, any communications, including emails. And I do know they exist. I have photographic evidence that they do exist, but yet the city still continues to say that they don't exist. So hopefully I'll be able to get down to the bottom of this soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard? I'm going to ask the administration to follow up on that once again. Thank you. Mrs. Roby.
Okay, ordinances for final passage. Council File 15901, official ordinance number 37 of 2014. An ordinance fixing the tax rate for all city purposes for fiscal year 2015, beginning on January 1st, 2015, and ending on December 31st, 2015. Be enacted by the Council of the City of Erie, Pennsylvania, Section 1, that a tax rate for general government purposes for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2015, and ending December 31st, 2015, is hereby fixed and levied at the rate of 11.65 mils upon each dollar of assessed valuation of real estate taxable for city purposes in the City of Erie during the year 2015, or upon each $100 of assessed valuation of real estate for the tax purposes in the City of Erie. Section 2, that said levy for debt service purposes for the city of Erie for the year 2015 is enacted at a rate of $7,231,988. This amount will be transferred from the general fund to the debt service fund. By Mr. Witherspoon.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And seconded by Mr. Winarski, that council file ordinance bill 5901, and now known as official file ordinance number 37 of 2014, be finally passed by the city council.
Are
Mr.
there
Brennan?
any questions or discussion?
Mr. President, if I
Yes.
could. This item, setting the tax rate, concerns me. You know, we've talked to citizens have spoken to us about the 7% tax increase going from 10.85 mils to 11.65 mils. You know, is a lot for our citizens to bear, and I think we've talked about it in many budget sessions. However, the issue seems to be minimalized by saying, well, it's only $80 on $100,000, and that may be true. The increase might amount to that, but the $100,000 homeowner is paying $1,165 a year in city tax alone, not to mention the 16.6 city school tax mills and the 4.9 county mills that they're added to their plate as well. So an average $100,000 homeowner in the city is expected to pay 33.15 mills, compared to a homeowner in Mill Creek will be paying 20.1 mills. So I think, you know, we're missing the full picture when we say the increase is only 0.8 mils. Our homeowners, as we know, we live in a city with a declining economic situation right now. Our median household income, $33,544. So we're asked the people who make $33,000 in their whole household to pay $3,315 of that to pay just their property taxes alone. 10% of your household income, just your property tax alone. And the fact that the city is in a position where we actually have been over the years able to reserve some funds in what's called a fund balance, money that we have in the bank in a savings account, and our citizens don't have money in the bank in a savings account, and we're not willing to split that difference with them and reduce our tax increase on them. And take a little bit of that reserve, not deplete it, take $1 million out of $8.5, $1 million out of our savings so that our citizens don't have to take quite as much out of their savings, I think is only fair. So in light of that, I think we need to be bigger picture thinkers and see how tax increases affect the people who live in our city and people who either choose to no longer live here or choose to not move here because these costs are just getting too high. So I'll be voting no to this tax increase.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other discussion? If not, we're going to use the tote board. No discussion?
Mr. President, could I offer an amendment and see if there's any support? I'd like to ask the council to consider a motion to reduce this tax increase to a 0.4 mils instead of a 0.8 and take $1 million from the fund balance to supplement, if there's any support.
You heard the proposed amendment. Is there a second?
I will second that, Mr. President.
It's been seconded by Councilman Brennan. Call for the vote, Mrs. Roby.
Okay, this is for the amendment by Mrs. Rancuso and seconded by Mr. Brennan to reduce the tax increase to 4 mils and
0.4 mils.
0.4 mils and
to use $1 million from the fund balance city reserve.
okay. And to use 1 million from the fund balance. Okay. Roll call. Mr. Brennan? Mrs. Rancunso? Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Kwiatkowski? Mr. Mursky?
No.
Mr. Winarski?
No.
Mr. Witherspoon?
No.
All right, then this amendment fails to adopt, 4 votes to 3.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones.
again, through our budget deliberations, we've had really in-depth dialogue around this. Several ideas and options, and I think we're going to continue, some of them quite significant, that we're going to continue to follow up on. And this item that's proposed by Councilwoman Kunso was one of those items. And in our deliberations, we did receive information and we dialogued around how on the surface this may look good in excuse me, and I was agreeable asking the question myself, like, that kind of makes sense. And I think on one level it does on the surface, but I think what happens is we heard from the finance department, and those of us who are a little more experienced and have a lot of these budgets under our belt now, realize that to lessen the increase kind of pushes it a little further out and potentially can make it worse. It's like filling, we always have a discussion around one-time budget filling items, and to pull from the reserve in that way is another one of those one-time budget filling items that I don't think in the long run is going to benefit the way that we think it might in this 1 year. I do agree with everything that was said around the challenge of the citizens and the citizenry, and this increase on the taxes. In the taxes is a burden on homeowners and property owners, as well as renters and everyone involved, because it kind of trickles down, right? But I think the other side of the discussion is important to be had, because respectfully, to compare us to some of our suburban neighbors, we have obligations they don't have obligations to. For example, a paid fire department, which if you look at a lot of the increases and the need for a tax increase is based on salaries that are absolutely out of this council's control. Due to binding arbitration, due to state legislation, there are things that we're obligated to pay for. For example, fire, increases in police salaries and other salaries that are contractual that we cannot go back on. And so I think there has to be a broader conversation around just, this might work. Like, there's a reason. And so I think most people wouldn't mind being taxed if they understand what the point of the tax is and how it's not, we just kind of decided, hey, we need a couple more dollars. No, these are some things that are absolutely out of our control as a council. There are many of the things that have been suggested. Respectfully, Mr. Evans' article that someone quoted or referenced earlier, many of those things are as well out of our hands. It's through state legislature, through things that are attached to us because we're a third-class city. We can't change those things, which limit. We can't go into a nonprofit and say, you know what, we think you make too much money. That'd be great. Don't get me wrong. I get the point. But it's not legal for us to do that. It's not like some monarchy. We can just kind of bang a gavel and things have to change. So I think we have to have broader conversations around why we're having a tax increase, so that people understand. You can like it or not, but at least you'll have the information. And it's not just people think we're just doing this because we're willy-nilly up here trying to make millage changes. And, again, I don't want to get I'm already been too long-winded on it, but I think there's a reason. And it's not just because there are and we have identified those reasons through budget deliberations, through conversations, through throwing out several ideas. And right now, this is not a great idea, but it's the option that we have. Thank God it's not more, because as I looked at some things and talked to some people, there was other proposals for it to be more. And so everybody realizes this is not the optimal way of doing things, but it is where we're at in the cards we've been dealt, again, by things that are out of our control for the most part. So, as we go through the roll call, I will be voting in favor of, not because I want to, but because this is where we're at, and we have a responsibility from beyond this point to continue to look for other ways of revenue so that we don't have to do this so often. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Once again, we'll use the tote board. We're voting for.
Find out.
See if it works. Some go up and down. Oh, no, mine goes up and down.
Do they, wait, are we saying go or?
Wait a minute.
Oh, okay, go.
You forgot to let us practice once. We're in new seats since we used this.
Well, they should be right as far as your seats are.
Mine goes up and down, though. Rose, what is up and down? What
Some are up and down and some are side to side, but I can't.
I can't. It's like that now.
Okay.
They're like that now. Should be. Here.
I don't know. We'll see.
I can't make it.
Is that David?
Is it on?
Now, if for some reason it's not what you want, we'll do it again. Okay.
Yeah, that could
They're
be.
lighting.
Yeah, we got one light that's
David,
Nothing's lighting up on.
there it is.
okay.
It's all here on his
Now press on
controller.
it.
There we go, okay.
There, it worked.
You have it, Ro?
I got the vote. City Council passed official file ordinance number 37 of 2014 by yeas 5, nays 2. Council File 15902, ordinance, official ordinance number 38 of 2014, an ordinance of the City of Erie, County of Erie, and Commonwealth of Pennsylvania adopting the general fund and certain other budgets for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2015 and ending December 31st, 2015. Section 1, that the following financial program is hereby adopted for the year 2015, and the appropriations are made in the general fund and other fund accounts. Section 2, that the sum of $72,699,290 is hereby appropriated to the general fund, and the total budget, including other fund budgets, total $127,127,250 is more fully described in supporting detail. By Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Mr. Winarski, the Council File Ordinance Bill number 15902, and now known as Official File Ordinance number 38, 2014, be finally passed by the City Council.
So, board?
City Council passed Official File Ordinance number 38 of 2014 by yeas 5, nays 2. Ordinances for first reading. Council File number 15903, an ordinance repealing Official File Ordinance 44 of 2009, Codified Ordinance of the City of Erie, Part 7, General Offenses Code, by repealing Article 739, Lost or Stolen Handguns, in its entirety in accordance with Act 192 of 2014. By Mr. Kwiatkowski, pardon me, seconded by Mr. Brennan, the Council File Ordinance number 15903, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mr. Brennan?
We can't do nothing.
Mrs. Rancunso? Mr. Jones? Mr. Kwiatkowski? Mr. Mursky? Mr. Winarski? Mr. Witherspoon? City Council read and adopt Council File number 15903 By yeas 7, nays 0.
Mr. President. Yeah, Mr. President, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it was someone else. I just wanted to this is one of, what we just passed is one of those situations that is out of our control. So the irony of us, having anything repealing something around stolen handguns or anything around handguns right now sounds like absolutely ridiculous. But because of things, again, that are out of our control as a council, as a body, state legislation, we can't have a law on our books more stringent, I believe, and maybe the language, I'm not a lawyer, but more stringent than state law. And so, things like this happen. Again, this is another one of those things that are out of our control. We may all disagree on certain things, but there are certain things, again, that are out of our control, and regrettably, this is one of them. Again, this is not about, your opinion on guns, but I just think this is an interesting highlight to make the point that I was trying to articulate earlier. Some things we just cannot manage because they're beyond our scope of influence. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Okay, Council File Number 15904, an ordinance amending Official File Ordinance Number 15 of 1976, Part 9, Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code, Article 955, Parks and Playground Areas, Section 955.06, Recreational Activities, Subsection 955.06B, Hunting and Firearms, by deleting reference to carrying and possessing firearms in park areas in accordance with Act 192 of 2014. By Mr. Mursky and seconded by Mr. Brennan, the Council File Ordinance Number 15904, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance Number 15904 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. That takes us to new business, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
No?
I'd like to move the balance of the agenda. this
I'll
evening.
second.
Been moved and second?
Any separations? Okay. Moving the balance of the agenda, Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. We do have a waive rules, Mr. President.
Yes, we do.
Mrs. Rankunso's appointee to the zoning board wasn't able to confirm before we had put the agenda out. So this is by Mrs. Rankunso and seconded by Mr. Witherspoon. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that Ms. Jacqueline Dreyfus Spry, 225 Cherokee Drive, Erie, PA, is hereby appointed to the Zoning Hearing Board for a 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2019, at the recommendation of Councilwoman Jessica Rankunso. Mr. Brennan?
Excuse me. There's a quick question.
Okay.
Quick question.
I'm sorry.
Can
Oh,
I
I'm
ask
sorry,
a
we have
simple,
to
quick question about that item?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This, I guess, for this appointee, is there any information about this person that we could have, or just a little bit of brief?
Mr. President, if I can interject, I think we have to vote the way the rules even have
Yeah.
discussion on it.
I'm sorry.
Just for a point of order, just
Yep, I'm sorry.
respectfully.
Okay, sorry, that was my fault. Okay, we're going to vote to waive the rules. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Any discussion?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Mr. Brennan, I'll be happy to provide her resume. my appointment was coming up, and I wanted to get her on before the next meeting because they meet on Tuesday, second Tuesday in January, so I didn't want to miss the opportunity to get her on before our next meeting. But she is an urban planner by education, and she has returned back to the area. She was out of town for several years, and her husband became employed in a law firm here locally, and they moved back to Erie. So they have bought a home in the city and renovated it, and are living in it here in the area. And I thought she'd be a good candidate to serve on that in that capacity in zoning. But I'll get her resume. I'm going to meet with her the week of the holiday, and I'll bring that to you.
Oh, but that's great. I mean, it sounds like a great
Yeah.
background there, so I appreciate it.
The first time I met with her, she talked to me about form-based zoning, and it's pretty unusual for anybody to talk about zoning at all, nonetheless form-based zoning. So I said, what's that? And she told me, and I said, well, you might be a good candidate to be on one of our boards. So that's right. You know how I like to talk about zoning. So I'll bring
Great.
her resume to us.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Ronquillo, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. And this motion passes 7 yeas, nays, 0. And that takes us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Okay, Councilman Mursky.
I don't have anything to report today other than we have a convention center meeting tomorrow, but I did just want to talk a little bit about the tax increase and just let people know that I understand their frustration with raising taxes. Nobody wants to raise taxes. The reality is, whether we put it off till next year or we did it this year, taxes were going up. And it was a matter of we were either going to dip into the funds, the little savings we have, and give 2 little tax increases, totaling the tax increase of this year, or we were going to bite the bullet and do a tax increase all at once. Curtis is absolutely right. We are limited by the third-class city code on what we can do, and a lot of the things that are very great ideas for generating revenue that Philadelphia do, that Pittsburgh do, as first and second-class cities, they're allowed to do it under state law, and we are not allowed to do that under state law. A lot of the increases were Act 111 contractual mandates due to binding arbitration. And I think there's a big misconception out there that we're sitting on all this money and it's just sitting in the bank and we're not using it. We use our reserves funds to pay the bills in January and February before the tax revenue starts coming in. And so what happens is it's prevented us from having to borrow money every year at a high interest rate called a TRAN. And it's basically a payday loan for governments. You don't have money, you need money, the bank loans you the money at a high interest rate. And because we haven't had to do that in 5 years, we've been able to raise our credit rating. And so now when we borrow money, we're considered fiscally a good credit-worthy municipality, which not a lot of municipalities in Pennsylvania are. And I think that we have to balance the fiscal health of the city and the needs of the taxpayers. And it's a hard job. None of us take this lightly. Contrary to what people say at the podium, none of us just breezed through this budget and didn't look at it and didn't examine it and didn't question every expenditure. We all did that. There's no fat on this budget. It's all bare bones. I mean, we have hundreds of less people working here than in the year 2000. Hundreds less. And so this was hard. This was probably the hardest budget. I've only been on 3 budgets, but this was very hard. But for me, balancing that, it was more, to me, it was just the responsible thing to do was to look long-term at the city's financial security and fiscal health so that we don't get in a situation where we were earlier in the decade or last decade where we were almost bankrupt and getting ready to be taken over Act 47 by the state. And so for me, it was about making a tough decision, and it's not easy. I pay taxes too. We all pay taxes too. Leadership sometimes isn't about doing what's popular, it's about doing what's right. And I voted my conscience and I did what's right. So I wanted to explain that. People might disagree with me, but I'm always going to be honest with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to jump on the other side. Councilwoman Kunso.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening.
Back over here to Dr. Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple items I want to report are just some meetings I attended. I met on December 5th with the advisory group for the city's comprehensive plan. I just want to kind of give a quick update. We received the consultant proposals. We each picked the top 3, then we narrowed it down to a top 3 overall, and then we have face-to-face interviews that are scheduled for this Friday. But we're hoping to get that person on board, that consultant on board for the comprehensive plan, hopefully before the first of the year. Also, I was invited to attend a meeting that the city's Economic Development Office organized, a meeting to discuss trying to find some affordable food outlet options that have been mentioned prior in this meeting. Somewhere in the Center City area where we recently had the closing of Bradley Surefine in Sanders Market. There was probably like 15 people at this meeting. They all had various interests in neighborhood watch groups, different other neighborhood organizations, and there was a lot of ideas thrown out there. We tracked all the ideas, talked about some of the other information, and all the information can be put together and summarized into a report. But the goal is to try to bring all this together and try to get a lead agency that's going to push us forward. The city's just trying to kind of help organize this, and as part of that committee to kind of keep pushing us forward and just give ideas on what could happen or just give input. So, of course, that's something that we need to work on, and we'll continue to do so in the city. I did want to also note that I attended the Port Authority meeting this past yesterday, and just one I might want to report that the Port Authority is actually going to be selling the land at the Convention Center right now. The Convention Center is on right now, so that land will be owned by the Convention Center after that transaction. No other items to report for the Port Authority. I did want to thank the representative from the Erie Otters that was here today. Again, a great thing for Erie is having Otters here, having a baseball team. It's all good for the economy and good for our downtown. And just one item about the budget. I just wanted to. I'm not going to talk about a lot of the vote today. I just wanted to mention that I'd mentioned this kind of in our study sessions also. That coming this year and the next coming years, I'd like to work really close with the administration and try to look at those ideas. I think we did a good job working with the administration on the garbage delinquency and the Erie Waterworks, but just to try to look for new sources of income for the city. I know some that cannot be. They're all state issues, like we've been discussed prior. But there are some things that we can do, and I guess I would just want to look at that as closely as possible, see what else is out there, because we just need to find some new income for the city instead of just looking for the taxes. And to me, if we do find some income, maybe it's something small, maybe it seems trivial, but I think it'll kind of help us as we're generating future budgets to, you're always going to have minimal tax increases. Of course, everything goes up all the time, but maybe it'll be more feasible to try to keep those tax increases to a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Kutowski.
Yes, I just want to kind of echo what Councilman Mirsky was talking about. It's never pleasant when you have to raise taxes, but as you look at our situation, it's easy to write letters to the editor and talk about things that people would like us to do, but in reality we can't do them. We're limited because we are a third-class city. We are judged on the same standards as Corey, St. Mary's, Williamsport, and Allentown. You got quite a divergence of population there and problems. Yet there are things we can't do. Perhaps many years ago, when we had the opportunity, we should have joined Scranton and become a 2A city, a hybrid, and that may have solved some of our problems. But each one of us has the same issues. I'd like to tax the non-profits. My thing is I'd like to see the 1%, the income tax, returned to the city like they do in Cleveland and parts of Ohio. Where you work is where the money should stay. Unfortunately for us, many of our employees here at the city, at the school district, at many of our hospitals, all reside out of the city. So we get nothing out of that. We provide them with the jobs, but we get no real estate tax. we get no income tax, and we get no purchasing power because they're not shopping in Erie. And when you look around Erie, you don't see anybody new coming in droves. So, I mean, we're all up here with a problem. To cut the budget would have been simple. All we had to do was lay off some police and firemen. And nobody wants to see that. None of us up here, I don't believe, and nobody back there at home. But that's the reality. Our budget is heavy on public safety. There are things that were done through negotiations that this council does not have control over. We can try to be more proactive, but in our form of government, which is a strong mayor, that's the one that the people picked, and that's the government we have to live with. And each department, and each branch of government has their role. Going forward, I think we have to start looking at ways of being more effective in collecting our revenue and ways of expanding our economic base, because I think that's truly the only way we're going to be to get out of this problem. We have to grow our way out, and we have to find a way to start bringing people into this city to live and work, and start making it where our employees and people that make that have the better jobs in this community don't go south of the border, east or west. And it was painful, and we all had to vote on this tonight. None of us like it, but for those that think it's an easy solution, all you got to do is write a letter and say, well, do this and do that. We're limited by our legislature. And believe you me, and I know each one of these members of council personally have talked with all the legislators trying to swing their opinion. But it's a math problem. If you look at Erie County, you got, 5 or 6 state representatives, and only 2 are from the urban area. So that means when you take all the math through the whole Commonwealth, there's not many, the actual cities and urban areas are outnumbered by the rural, and they don't share in our problem, and that's where the roadblock is. And my goal is to try to convince the legislature to start giving third-class cities a right to do a little bit more and to pull themselves out of the hole. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilman Winarski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Naturally, everybody's talked about the budget tonight, and instead of going over everything and following up on some of the same thought process that I had, one thing people have to realize when they present a budget to us, meaning the administration, they're not looking at 1 year and 1 year only. What we're looking at is this year, 2 years down the road, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And when a budget is presented, and unfortunately when there's a tax millage increase, naturally I don't want to pay it. I don't want my family to have to pay it. I don't want my neighbors to have to pay it. I don't want my relatives. Nobody wants it. Sometimes you got to make a tough decision, but you also got to make a fiscally responsible decision. And by taking money, say, out of our reserves or out of our bank account, which has taken us many of years to get up there, I want to say 9 years, we went from almost having nothing in the bank up to 8 to 8.5 mil. That equals 2 months of operations in the city, so 8.5 mil really, as it sounds a lot on paper, a dollar amount, it is a big amount in the business of the city of Erie. So it's good to have, it's great to have. I asked Mr. Lichtenwalter, what is the magic number that we should have? And a 10, anything over or anything to the positive is good, but 10 to 12 would be ideal. There again, by having that money in our reserves also helps our bond rating. We're a stable bond rating, which there again in the future, if we need to go and look for monies for something or a big bond, when you have an A rating, they're going to come knocking on your door. You're not going to have to go, and I'm not a bondsman, but junk bonds or go to high-risk bonds and pay a higher interest. So everything that has happened fiscally in the city, even though we have to raise taxes, it's been 3 years since our last increase, it's still the fiscally responsible thing to do, and that's why I voted for it. With that being said, definitely a huge supporter of our Erie Otters, and anything as we can do as a city, as our council, I am behind it 100%. Actually, I'm a hockey fan. I had 4 kids that played. I played in the backyard, I don't know, wherever, in the street, but we definitely want to keep this team here. They are an asset to this city. The new arena, it just is the right thing. I appreciate this group starting this mission, and we're behind them 100%. Other than that, we won't see anybody probably till after the holidays, so very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe it was Winston Churchill said it's easy to criticize but very difficult to create. And so what we have the task to do is to try to create things that don't exist and recreate and fix things that have existed historically but maybe are not working the best in our current time. And, we have really intelligent people on this council, and we often have differences of opinion, and but it's all the right spirit behind it. We all have the best interests of this community at heart. It's not like, I've said it before, we've all said it, it's not like we fly in from LA to do a city council meeting, then we fly back out. The decisions we make around this desk affects us, our families directly as well, whether it's raising of a fee or whether it's whatever it is. Every content of every bit of content in our meeting affects us directly as well. So I think it's important that we, even though we disagree, I think all of us are probably going to sleep well tonight. Because we voted what we thought was best, and we may differ on that, but as long as you put your best foot forward, and you've done everything you could to try to do what you thought and felt was best, I think we should all get some rest tonight. With that said, we can't, because of arbitration, we can't lay off police, and we can't lay off firefighters. We did that when I first came on council in 2006. This place was full, because we had laid off so many police and so many fire to try to meet the budget. We found literally a box of bills that totaled about $1 million. And some of us were around when that happened. We've come a long way in this community with the series of slight variations in councils over the last 9 years. At least I've been on for 9 years with our administration and working as closely with them as possible. Not always agreeing, but we don't come out here and tell each other off because we disagree. We often disagree with things that's come down from the mayor's office, but we are professional in our disagreement. And I think that's worthy to be noted. Just because we don't come out here and argue, fight, and cuss each other out like we've seen in previous councils doesn't mean that we are rubber stamping anything, but we are working as professionals as much as possible to do the citizens or the business of the city. Our community is in a crisis in so many different ways, whether it be the fiscal issues that we're dealing with and poverty, whether it be the violence that we're experiencing in our community. And I don't, as an individual, have the answer to that. I don't think any individual has the answer to that. If so, they would have marketed it and we'd be okay. But I think the collective intelligence in our community is the only way that we can solve these challenges. And so for some people, I agree, the opportunity to work would be a great benefit for not just teenagers and kids, like adults need jobs in our community as well. We have to figure out, and again, it has to be multi-pronged, it has to be several different ways, and it is several different ways of dealing with our social ills and social concerns because they are rooted in several different issues. How do we fix that? I think one of the things we have to do is we have to begin to really be honest about what the problems are and be honest about the fact that it's not a black issue or a white issue or just a poor folks issue or east side issue. It's a community issue, and what happens on the lower east side directly affects what happens on the southern west side of our community or the southern east side of our community. We drive down the same streets, and we're breathing the same air. And so we all have to take a collective responsibility to do whatever we can and to offer what we have, bring it to the table to solve these issues. And until we do that, we'll just be having news blurps around next person shot, poverty levels high, tax rate increase. But there are some things that we can do creatively, collectively, individuals and organizations, to make this community a better place. With all that said, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. Celebrate family, celebrate love, celebrate life, and celebrate community. And Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Comptroller,
I have no report.
Administration.
Save yours for last. I actually have no report, just one quick housekeeping note. The refuse department will be on a delay during the next 2 weeks due to the holidays. So if your regular refuse picked up on Wednesday, it'll pick up on Thursday. So Wednesday, Thursday goes to Thursday, Friday for the Christmas and Thanksgiving holidays. If you have any questions, please give our Public Works office a call at 870-1450.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Roby.
I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Good report.
Council adjourns at 8:49. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kotowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski.